All right, so this is the third and final part for our Thursday's lecture. And now in this application we have just worked on, and we have talked about like the middleware in a deeper detail. We have talked about that middlewares are like the current functions that we use are also sort of middlewares and things like that. So right, so there's okay, just hold on a minute. Now what I want to do here is that I want to just create a middleware that will carry some data, or that might be used for displaying some data or using some data. So for example, for that, let's go and create function, and I'm calling it add data. And of course, it will accept request, response, and next, like the previous ones, right? And what it is doing, so it has a JavaScript object maybe of user, and that user might have a name. Let's call it Alex or something, whatever, or maybe city, Toronto. And that's that. I want to store, first of all, an object in that one, maybe a user object. And now I have to just create a user. Like again, if you want to save that data, I'll have to just make a variable for the request, rack.user. So I'm just creating a rack.user where I'm storing this user, the Alex Toronto user. I've just saved that typical user into that rack.user, right? And so what we can do, one of the things that we have to do is next, that we always do that next. But I'm just doing one thing for nothing, just like, out of curiosity, is that I'm just testing add data. So I want to just test my add data function, and I want to log that so that I know that this middleware is also running. Like so. Right. So now we have got this middleware over here, and now save it. And I have to use that as well. Okay, so app.use, and what have I named? I've named that add data. Thanks. Now I can use that one. So I've defined a middleware which has one user object and one, like, it's a one user object over there. And then I have just stored that at user into the request part of it. So I'm just adding that Alex Toronto user in the request part of it. Right. So now what I can do is that I can do one interesting thing. I can just define another route for that and work with that. Let's talk about that. For example, we were talking about this one. So let's copy this and paste. So I want to create another route, and maybe I want to create that route for user, right? And so of course that function will run, and now I don't want this const ID. This was coming from that previous one. Okay. So I want to send something, and what I want to send here, let's see, the same user data that I've populated with my request one, right? So I'll say res.send name, right, space, and then plus. So request.user. So first of all, we have got inside and then username, right? So plus and space, comma, if I can give it, and I say city, and then let's give another space, and then request.user.city, like so. Okay. Okay. Oh, I used request.send twice. Right. So what I've done, that I have defined a middleware. If you see that, like so. So I've defined this add data function, like, as a middleware, request, response, next. I've defined one object in it, Alex and Toronto. I've saved that value, request.user. I'm just saying that I'm setting up a request variable, request value is equal to user, and then console.log testing at data. I'm just consoling that one, and then calling that next. And I've created one route for that. If you see here, specifically a route with the with a get one, and I want to just run that whenever user asks for this, yes, and it will show that. So let's run this program. Okay, so server is stopped. Server was stopped. Okay, so let's see and what port we are running. We are running at 9,000. So let's run that one. Okay. So localhost and 9,000. Okay, sorry, it's running. And you know that whenever I just click that, and I'll have to come back and look at my console, which was running very slow in the last video. So it says that if you see that it's server running a middleware 1 for logging in console, testing add data. So that add data is also working. Why? Because we have defined that, you know, as a global level of that. And you see that I was logging there. That's why I was logging there, so that I can see. So it is running this test data, and then new log. New log means that we are talking about the main page, home page. And then I'm middleware 1 and logging console. I've just again double clicked on that one. Okay. So now see what happens. That I will need to run something interesting. So I can run that middleware specifically by calling this user one. So you see, when I'm calling user, it says name is equal to Alex and city is equal to Toronto. So what it has done, it has typically given me that data. So if you see here, that what I've done is that I've defined this Alex and Toronto, and this whenever this path is being used, what path I'm talking about? I'm talking about this user path. So whenever this user path is used, it's doing what? It's basically just catching that name and printing that request username. So that is what? Setting up a data by using a function, for example. First of all, setting up a data, and then setting up a data by using this request.user, and then displaying that data by using one of the routes in it. So far, so good. But again, one thing to notice, which you will be noticing, of course, is that we have got all those like running. So whenever I'm just running that, it says testing data is running. And now, right now, I'm in that page. If you see that right now, I'm in that page. So it says that testing of data is running over there. Like so. If I just double click on it, like again click on it, and if I see my, it's just really making hell of it anyhow. So now you see testing data. I'm a middleware 1 for logging in console, so you know that will always run, and now testing at data, it will keep on adding. And if I go back to my main page again, you know what will happen? It should, after that add data, it should have new log, right? And that of course I'm middleware 1 again running for that, and then and that all that sequence. So this is one good way of using that one, right? So this one will do what? As I said, that display the data. So now let's do another thing, another interesting aspect of it. And what I want to do is that I want to make middleware that will be specific to a route. For example, if you say that we have talked about this user one, and I want to make another one that will be working with maybe user or something. So let's come and talk about that. So for that, what I'm doing is that I will be just creating a middleware directly by using this app.use. But we have done that before. Like again, we know how to use that app.use. So now in that app.use, I will just give one path first of all. And that user path, I'm just taking, you remember we have talked about, and we have got that path over here, if you want to say. So here I want to run a function, and that is again the middleware function I want to run. So you can use both of the syntaxes. I'm just using the function syntax right now. I can use that arrow syntax also. I hope that you are familiar and you remember that arrow syntax as well. So what I say is that, for example, here I'm just defining an array of variables, arrays, and I say Alex and Bob and Charlie, and we can have many values. So I'm just defining these 3 values. Now, if you know that we've talked about that, if I just do request dot name, if I want to set up a variable in my request, so I'll have to just do that. So I'll just take request dot name equal to names, and now the name will be coming from what? From it will be coming from our URL. So what I will do is here is that I will just use one of the technique is that request dot params dot id, like so. I hope you are getting that. So user will provide some ID, like a dynamic ID with the user, like on the path. And what we'll be doing is that we will be just trying to trying to run that and trying to basically that path, and there will be the ID that I will be just taking that ID from the user and on saving that name inside that name, right? And if I've made this middle of course, so I've just directly defined that, so I don't need to use that. I'm automatically using that. What I need to do is that I need a get request for that now, app.get with the same path as I have given over there. So I just need that same path over here, /user/:id. I'll copy that one. I want to use that, right? So now this will be, again, what I can do here is that I can have a function running here, and again, you can run that function by using any of the the technique request, response, and next we have. And you know what, I think I forgot one thing. So see here, next, and that I said that it's very important, and we always need to have that next. If you won't do that next, you know that what might happen, that it will be there will be some problem. I think we have discussed that. If not, I will just discuss that later on. So we have got this function over here, and I have to run this function here, and let me just run that function. What that function will do. Okay, I've done something wrong. I think this will come here. Okay. Right. So now what I want to do is I want to send response.send, and I want to send name, whatever name user has provided, for example. So you know what will be that? It will be request.name. Right? So request.name. And what is this name? This name is coming from here. We have set up this name from out of names. So whatever user has provided the name for, like user will not provide the name, they will provide the ID, for example, 012. So here we have just defined this 012. And we have used 3 values. So it will be from 0, 1, and 2, the valid IDs. And it will accept those valid IDs, and then it will run accordingly. Let's run that one. Save that. And I hope my file, yes, my file is running again. Let's come back here. This is our first part. This is our user part. And as I said, right now I'm looking for 3 values. Let's start from the 0, 1. I've just given that 0 to the user. Let's see what is coming up. It says Alex. So now it's accepting a data, and on the basis of data, taking the decisions. Bob. And if I say something like that, 2, it says Charlie. So there are 3 names. So if I say something like that, which is not there, 5, it's undefined. Of course, I have only defined 3 values. There are 3 values in my array. So let me show what we have done over here. Let me just go have a look at it. So I wanted to create one, middleware where I wanted to define certain array of variable, and I wanted to user to just put in some number, and then combining or asking, or on the basis of that number, I'm just taking out the name from this thing. What else can we do over here? We can do one interesting thing. We can just define that what I'm looking for. That as I'm saying that there should be value from 0 to 3. So this value should come from 0 to 3. And also there must be a single digit. Like so. So it's basically something like that, that is called, if you see that is called a regular expression type of something. But if I'm doing something like this over here, I need to do that same in this path, because these both are the same one. So if I say that something like that, so what will happen, that it will be the digit from 0 to 3. I'm just combining that like this. This digit should come inside 0 to 3, and there must be only 1 digit of it, right? So now let's come here, and you see again, if I put 0, so this is again, so more or less the output will be same. But here what is saying that it cannot get the user. Why? Because the 5 is not a logical answer. Before that it was being undefined. So I don't want to do it undefined. Rather, I want to say I want to, or rather, okay, it cannot find us. And 3 says undefined. So it is getting undefined on 3. Is that because I just included this 3 maybe? Oh, so this 3 should be included. Anyhow, so we'll see that. I don't know why it's just mentioning it over there. Right. So what we have done, that we have defined middleware, which is capable of defining variables and then capable of taking input from the user as a URL parameter. And then I'm setting that URL parameter to my request.name, another new variable. And by using that rec.name, request.name, what I'm doing is that I'm just trying to insert that rec.name over here, right? So this is basically what? This is something that we wanted to discuss about the middleware. So if you just again go back to our comments, so this is we have just talked about this middleware, and we have mostly talked about this application level middleware. You can just always work on that. So now the last thing that I wanted to discuss is basically error handler, right? So our error handler object or our error handler is what? That is basic. That is called, and we said that it's a special type of a middleware that has error inside that, and we can run that error handler. So you see that we said in the beginning that it has 4 parameters, and whenever some function, some middleware by like rather than calling next, if they start calling next err, so that would be existed. For example, here they've just created one handle client error. And this is what this will be, the client error handler, and it has these are the 4 values. So so it has 4 values over here. So this is one error handler here, which is just having these 4 values, and as well as it has got its logging an error. So let's put that error handler in our example, and that would make some sense over there. Okay, let's suppose that right now we are not using any error handler over here in our code, and we want to see that what happens when an error occurs, right? So for example, if you talk about, maybe let's talk about the root, maybe some of the middleware. What is that middleware? For example, we have one middleware, logging info. Now let's talk about that first. So it's a log console which is logging everything for us. For example, here what I want to do is that if I say something like const error obj equal to new error, and I am an error. So now it says that we have just created an error by ourselves. Maybe something has happened in this middleware. You were asking something from database, you were asking something from something else, or maybe anything at all. And what happened is that you have come across some error, and that error is being thrown by this next. It's error obj. Now if I save it and if I run it, server is running. Now you see, if I just run this one, oh, it says I'm an error. And if I go to just the main screen, you'll see that it will say I'm an error. So error has occurred, which is not a graceful exit from a program. And another interesting thing to mention over here, that our application has also crashed. It's no more working, right? It has gone crashed. So what you want is that you always want to have something like a graceful exit out of your program. And for that, what we do is that we need to define an error handler. And one important thing about error handler is usually that we go and define it towards the very end, right? And why it is in end, I'll show you that if you do not define it in end, what will happen. So I'll just first define it in end at the end, and then we'll see that. Okay, so function error handler maybe. So we are defining, and you know that it will accept 4 parameters instead of 3. Error is the first parameter that will accept. Then we have response, and then we have next, right? Like so. So what do you want this error handler to do? Maybe a graceful exit if you want, for example, or maybe a message that shows. So if error occurs, so what we have to do? So we are saying that response.send, and maybe make it bold, that there was an error of some kind, or of some kind. Try again. So this will be a message that we want to throw. So whenever that kind of thing happens, right? And I'm not using a next over here. And what is the reason behind that? Because this might be the last thing that might occur. So let's run this one. Okay, so server is running again. Server is back, like again with our code. Let's run that. Okay, so still it says I am an error. Okay, so yes, something interesting. I've not used that. So error handler, we need to use that as well. We have just defined that and we have not used it. Error handler. Right, now save it. And now my server is running again back. And let me go to my, so see here. And why it's happening? Because I am throwing one error from my main, my logging info. If you see here, I'm throwing an error from this part. Right? So because I'm just throwing, so just let's take that out. I'm cutting it from here and I'll paste it somewhere else. So for the timing, I say that it is going fine. But now after displaying the data from the database, like so, if I say it's the app.get where I'm defining it over here. So maybe that it's unable to get the data, or maybe there is some problem. So I say that pass that error obj, error object, and save that. So now what will happen? You see here. So first of all, my program is running fine. If I go to user, still it should run fine because it's showing, the one of the part. And if I go somewhere here, like user, after user, if I go to 2, for example. So now what has happened? That I wanted to display this user 2, and what has happened? That it has like the error handler, like the middleware that we were using, it has thrown an error, and that error has been caught. And after that error is caught, there is no next button. So there where it will go, like where will my control go? You getting what I'm saying? So after getting the value, after just taking the value, we are doing that. So let's do one another thing. Not taking the value, rather maybe just try that out in our display of value. Or maybe, yes, you can do that in display on value or something. All right. So yes, we can call a next function from here as well. So if you see here, error and next, so error obj. Right. Let's check that. Right. So to our main page, this is our main page. And if you talk about, if you go to your user/2, for example, it's just showing that, right? And then after showing that, if I'm not going anywhere else, this is the last route, and that is the difference that you see, that because this is ending route over here, so it's not going next anywhere else. It's not going to that error page. So let me just take that out from here and try to place it. And no need for next over here, because as I said that this is the ending of it. So let's talk about this one. This one we have already tested it. For example, this one is our add data. Okay, so log console again. Let's come back here. So log console. I'm just putting that also all inside that. Error obj. Now save that and let's run it. So because this is the first error handler that the middleware that always runs, and it runs and it says that there was an error in some kind, and then try again, something like that. So this is basically a graceful exit out of it, and this is almost the same as we have done over here. So it says that if there is an error that has been called, log that error. You want to log that error particularly, or if the error was an XHR request, XML, like HTTP request, responded 500 storage JSON message. So you say that if request.xhr respond.status 500.send. So this is one of the way of chaining of the messages, chaining of the functions maybe. So respond.status 500.send, you send this response, else you send this 500 send something when processing wrong. So this is what it's all about. And it's now here we have this debugging in Visual Code. I hope you are familiar with debugging, that you place a checkpoint, and then after that running that checkpoint, you can just always run your code by looking at all those things. So you can have a look at these notes. So this very much ends our this part of this Thursday's lecture. So I hope that you will have a good look of it, and you will study notes. And if you have any questions, you can always ask that, maybe in team or maybe through email or maybe something, whatever you are, wherever you feel comfortable in. So I would be looking for those questions and things like that. So thank you very much and have a good day.